Thanks so much for joining us for the first edition of Literacy League. I'm your host, Elaina Chasen from Montford Middle School here in Leon County. And today we have the Anybodies, author Julianna Baggot, aka Anybodies. Students from across the state were asked to send in their questions about the book. So let's get started. We've had a lot of questions about your pen name. Gabriella, Jasmin, and Jestes from Old Kings Elementary in Flagler County had the following question.
Why do you use your pen name for this particular book?
Well, I started out as an adult novelist. I still write novels for adults, and I have collections of poetry for adults. So part of this was wanting to disappear under a pen name for a little bit. I'd written a lot of novels in a short period of time, and so my agent wanted me to write kind of terrifying, mystery thrillers or something like that. And I get terrified playing the board game Clue. I mean, seriously, like, the candlestick. I mean, who would kill someone with a candlestick? I don't know who would do that. So anyway, that was not going to work for me. But I was reading the books that I first fell in love with my kids. I have 4 kids. And so I kind of returned to my magical roots in storytelling. And so that's how it happened. The idea for the pen name came first, and the pen name came second.
Okay. And then our next question is from Cara Jestes from Bode Taylor Middle School, also in Flagler County, and she wonders, what is your favorite book?
My favorite book of all time. I always have a hard time answering this question because when somebody asks you to name your favorite book, you kind of just stare at them blankly because you can't think of anything. You guys just had an FCAT, so you know what I mean on that, where you just stare at it and have no idea. But when I was a kid, I really loved Roald Dahl books, and now as an adult, because they were strange and fantastical and meaty and weird and sometimes diabolical in their own way. And then as an adult, I've kind of enjoyed Margaret Atwood, so kind of moving on and still doing stuff that's she does speculative fiction and unusual kinds of fiction. And I still love realists, and I love kind of contemporary American fiction as well. So.
Okay. Our next question is from Jessica Mills, a 7th grader from Dunnellon Middle School in Marion County, and she asks,
which character do you most like, Fern or the miser?
Well, of course, who wants to be like the miser? No one wants to be like the miser, right? So I'm like Fern in a lot of ways. If eyes come in small, medium, large, and extra large, Fern and I both probably have extra large. And I'm a collector of odd things, and she's a collector of keys and odd things. I was raised in a very boring place, as was she. So Fern and I have a lot of things in common, and I think we both have that overactive imagination. Although hers turned out to be not just imagination, but really strange things are happening to her in the Anybodies. So yes, so Fern, I'm picking Fern.
Okay. And then our next question from Madeline, Noelle, and Alex, also from Old Kings Elementary School. They ask, why does all the weird stuff happen to Fern and no one believes her?
Well, I think she comes, her parents are both accountants who work at Beige and Beige Accounting, and they are, as you know, horribly, terribly, tragically dull. And so they can't imagine that the world is unusual. They're not looking at the world and expecting anything unusual. They don't know that things aren't what they seem. They think that things are pretty much what they seem. Tidy little rows of numbers and all those types of things. So it's normal that they would hear Fern's stories, which she stops telling them the strange things that are happening to her, because they don't believe that the world is a mysterious and strange place, if you look closely enough.
Okay. Rachelle Elisme from New River Middle School in Broward County asks, how does the Anybody organization begin?
The Anybodies have a long history, and when I first wrote the book, The Anybodies, and then I was in LA and I was pitching that book and a lot of other ideas and, taking meetings, having lunches, my people talking to other people's people. The question came up again and again, well, what's the philosophy? What's the larger world here? And I realized that I really hadn't addressed that in the Anybodies. And so when you go to the Nobodies, you get a lot more about the history of the Anybodies and how they've always existed throughout time and how they've evolved in different ways. So you'll have to go to book 2, the Nobodies.
Okay. Speaking of the Anybodies, Alysha Johnson, an 8th grader from Dunnellon Middle School, wonders,
have you ever wished that you were an anybody?
Yes, well, of course. You know, I mean, because the Anybodies can turn into anybody or anything else. They can shake things out of books. Of course, there are tons of things that I would love to shake out of books. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to be an anybody, but I'm not. And, you know, I feel like the Anybodies it's something you can be born with, this ability, like a good singing voice. Some people are born with a beautiful singing voice. Other people have to work at it. I have a horrible singing voice, and I'm a horrible anybody. But maybe if I worked at it really hard, I could become a better anybody.
Okay. And then Cameron Johnson, another 7th grade student at Bode Taylor Middle School. She would like to know, how did you think of all the characters' names?
Oh, well, naming characters is interesting. I mean, I'm always collecting names. I'm always going through, you know, like Nancy Pantuliano, who I grew up with, and my husband will name somebody. And I'm always kind of collecting names. I always look at the ends of movies because it's a name festival. You know, you just choose whatever name is there. And when I get really, 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 really stuck, I go to the Book of Names, which is, any ideas? The Book of Names? The phone book. The phone book is full of names. It's kind of heavenly in that way. It offers pages and pages and pages of names. I mean, I never take somebody's full name, but I'll take one person's, you know, last name, another person's first name, mix and match, and yeah, so yeah, part of being a writer is, there's certain things you always have to collect. One is names, one is jobs of people, one is ways that people meet. There are all these things that you kind of have to do again and again and again in the worlds that you create. And so, yeah, I'm always looking for good names.
Okay. Madison and Annie from Old Kings Elementary School wonder,
What in your life made you create The Judge Are So Boring?
Yes. Well, I was raised in Delaware, which is a state. It was the first state. It's a small wonder. That's our little tagline. It's also called Delaware because no one knows where it is. And it's also called Dull-aware because it's extremely dull. Now, of course, wherever you live, you know, the world isn't always as it seems, so there are mysteries everywhere. And as a child, I went looking for them. But when I was talking about having a lot in common with Fern, for example, my parents took us to a place called Lost River for vacation, which is in West Virginia, and it's a real place. There is no river, it's lost, just like in the Anybodies, Lost Lake. There is no lake, it's lost. So some parts of Fern's tragically boring childhood I share. You know, that wound. But also it's what makes you a great writer, too. I mean, you don't have to come from, you know, running with the bulls in Pamplona. You can really just have an ordinary life, but pay very close attention, and you'll see that there are lots of mysteries to write about.
Okay. Debra Sneed, a 7th grade student of Bode Taylor Middle School, she wants to know what happened to Fern and her father.
Well, first of all, Bode Taylor, we're talking about names. Bode is a great name for a character, isn't it? And I'm really digging Bode Taylor Middle School because they're coming up with very good questions. What happens to Fern and her father? Well, I mean, I think she's talking about at the end of the book, right? But there are 2 more books, the Nobodies and the Somebodies, and Fern and her father go on to have more adventures. And I'm not exactly sure what specifically she's talking about, you know, what exactly. It might be that end scene, which is really kind of confusing because he transforms, and she transforms in unexpected ways. So that might be what she's pointing to. But, you know, as far as like wondering what goes on with his family and how they continue on, the Nobodies and the Somebodies, they do go on. And Howard becomes a more important character, too, as the trilogy continues.
Okay. Our next question comes from Johnny Walker, a 7th grade student at Dunnellon Middle School, who asks,
During your childhood and early ages, did you always want to be an author?
Well, I first wanted to be a bus driver because it has a very shiny knob and it makes those noises when it opens and closes, you know, like big breathing noises. So I liked that. I loved librarians because in the old days they didn't just do boop, boop. They did this thing where they'd flip all the books, flip, 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 and they'd stamp and stop and stamp and stop. And so it was really cool. It was very, very, very fast, very frenetic movement. And I thought I would like to be an Olympic librarian. I wanted to go to the Olympics of Library Studies or what have you. That doesn't exist, actually. I found out later. That's really kind of sad. But in any case, once I gave up kind of choosing a lifetime career on things that are shiny and or could be Olympic events but aren't, I decided to be a writer. So I was pretty young. I'd say by 10 or 11 or so, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, our last question is, do you have a fourth Anybody book in the works?
This is always a good question, and it comes up. And the Everybody's is the title that people always think about. And, you know, maybe one day I'll write an Everybody's. I don't know. I've thought about it a lot. So those characters are still very much in my mind. Bode is a pen name. My actual name is Julianna Baggot. And so I have books out as Julianna Baggot, too. So it's not like I'm not writing. I am writing. So The Prince of Fenway Park came out in the spring for any baseball fans. So that's a baseball book, and it's magical at the same time. And it's about the Red Sox kind of finally breaking the curse in 2004. And then I have a new book called The Everbreath, and The Everbreath just came out this winter. And both of those are under my name, Julianna Baggott.
Okay.
So.
I hope you enjoyed this edition of Literacy League. Thank you, Ms. Baggott, for your time today. Be sure to stay tuned into www.fldoe.org/literacy league for more details on the next book selection.